Welcome back to today's explainer. Okay, I want you to picture something for a second. Imagine a really busy railway station. You know the kind. Absolute chaos, rushing travelers everywhere, announcements blaring over the loudspeakers. And right there, sitting right in the middle of it all, is a man trapped in a relentless cycle of poverty. A beggar. He is completely, totally dependent on the fleeting pity of passengers who might toss a little loose change his way. Day in and day out, this is his entire reality. He's practically invisible to most people, right? He is entirely defined by his outstretched hand. But what actually happens when that core identity is suddenly shattered? Well, today we're exploring a story that perfectly illustrates the psychological mechanics behind wealth, value creation, and self-worth. Trust me, this is a good one.
So let's dive right into this. One day, our beggar spots a tall, very sharply dressed businessman stepping off a train. Now, thinking this wealthy-looking guy is going to give him a super generous handout, the beggar approaches him. But instead of just dropping a coin and walking past, the businessman actually stops. He looks right at the beggar and delivers this harsh but incredibly profound truth bomb. He asks, "You always ask, but do you ever give?" The beggar is completely confused. He's like, "I'm just a beggar. How could I possibly give anything?" And the businessman replies, "If you can't give anything, you have no right to ask." He goes on to say, "I am a businessman, and I believe in transactions. If you have something to give me, only then will I give you something in return." And with that, he just walks away.
All right, part one. The first step of change, the law of exchange.
Man, those words from the businessman, they hit the beggar literally like a freight train. He didn't just feel rejected, he felt deeply, deeply challenged. For 2 full days, he's just agonizing over this intense internal friction. He's thinking about the law of exchange, which is really the foundational rule of commerce and value creation, right? Give and take. He starts wondering, wait, is this why I hardly get any money because I offer absolutely zero value in return? But as you can imagine, this brings up a massive dilemma. What can a beggar, a guy with no money, no inventory, no skills, and no property possibly give in return for alms? I mean, how does a person with absolutely nothing offer value to the world? It really feels like an impossible riddle. For 48 straight hours, this single question practically paralyzed him.
And then, boom! On the third day, the breakthrough happens. He's sitting near the station, and his eyes happen to fall on these wild plants just growing freely right alongside the tracks. Flowers. Beautiful, blooming, completely free flowers. And the spark of absolute brilliance just hits him. He realizes that creating value doesn't always require capital. So he gathers a handful of these fresh wildflowers. His new game plan? Whenever someone drops a coin into his bowl, he smiles, reaches out, and hands them a flower in return. It's a creative pivot born out of pure necessity, but it shifts him entirely from being a passive receiver to an active provider. It's a real game changer.
And almost instantly, the entire dynamic shifts. People aren't just dropping coins out of pity anymore. They are genuinely delighted by this unexpected little gift. They smile, they keep the flowers, and far more importantly, a lot more people start giving him money. Because he's offering these flowers, his daily income doesn't just go up, it absolutely skyrockets. But he notices a super crucial detail. The exact moment he runs out of flowers to give, the money completely stops flowing. The law of exchange is proving itself to him in real time. He realizes he isn't actually getting charity anymore. He's being rewarded for providing a pleasant experience for people.
Which brings us to part 2, a massive shift in mindset, the identity shift.
So months pass by, and this whole flower trading thing just becomes his new normal. He picks flowers, he trades them for coins, wash, rinse, repeat. But the true deep transformation actually happens during his second encounter with that exact same tall businessman. Spotting him sitting on a train, the beggar rushes over, just full of excitement, holds out his fresh flowers and says, "Today I have something to give you. If you give me money, I will give you these flowers." The businessman smiles, buys a flower, looks right at him, and delivers the ultimate climax of our story. He says, "Wow, today you have become a businessman like me." Wow. Let that sink in for a second. He didn't say, "Hey, you're a really clever beggar." No, he said, "You have become a businessman." With that single sentence, the businessman boards his train and leaves, probably completely unaware that he has just entirely rewritten another human being's destiny.
You see, there's this profound disconnect here between our actions and our identity. Before this exact moment, the guy was already trading flowers for money, right? To the general public, he was already acting as a small trader. But in his own mind, he was still just a beggar who had found a clever little trick to get more handouts. His actions had changed, sure, but his core belief about himself hadn't budged at all. That businessman's validation was the catalyst that finally aligned his internal belief with his external reality. He finally saw what the rest of the world was already seeing.
The realization hits him literally like a lightning bolt. That heavy, humiliating cloak of being a beggar just completely falls off his shoulders. Right there, in the middle of this crowded platform, he experiences a massive epiphany. He looks up and just starts shouting at the top of his lungs, "I am not a beggar! I am a businessman! I can be rich, too!" Onlookers are staring, probably assuming the poor guy has finally lost his marbles, right? But he doesn't care. He just turns, walks away from the station, and completely disappears. From that day forward, no one at that railway station ever saw the flower-giving beggar again.
Okay, let's fast forward 6 months. We are back on a train, pulling into that exact same station. 2 sharply dressed men in crisp suits are seated near each other. One of them leans over, extends his hand, and says, "Excuse me, do you recognize me?" The other businessman looks pretty puzzled and says, "No, I believe this is our first meeting." The first man just smiles this massive smile. "Actually, this is our 3rd meeting. I am the beggar you refused to give money to, and I'm the man you bought flowers from." The second businessman is absolutely floored. I mean, no way. The man sitting across from him, radiating success and confidence, is the destitute beggar from the platform. It's true. The former beggar explains that he is now a major flower merchant, and he's actually traveling to another city to expand his blooming enterprise.
Moving on to part 3, success, and the final lesson, the masterclass.
So how in the world does someone go from picking weeds by the train tracks to running a citywide floral business in just 6 months? Well, the logic is actually incredibly precise. Step 1, he completely adopted the law of give and take. He learned the hard way that the world rewards value, not just need. Step 2, and honestly this is the absolutely crucial point, he changed his self-image. When that businessman called him a peer, he realized people weren't giving him pity charity at all. They were actually buying cheap flowers. And because they were buying them and he was selling, he took the tiny bit of capital he had saved up, stopped begging entirely, and started buying wholesale flowers. He shifted from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of scale. And that inevitably led right to step 3, achieving immense success.
The core takeaways from this whole transformation are absolute. First, success is fundamentally hidden right there within your own mindset. You will never ever outgrow your own self-image. If you constantly see yourself as small, your results are going to be small. Period. The former beggar had to genuinely awaken his own self-respect before he could ever demand respect from the marketplace. You absolutely must make your thinking big if you want to reach the peak of your potential. His circumstances only changed when his identity changed first.
Which brings us to the ultimate question for you to take away from this explainer today. I want you to really look at your own life, your career, your relationships. Are you operating from a mindset of deficit, just sort of waiting for the world to hand you what you want? Or are you hyper-focused on the actual value you bring to the table? When you look in the mirror, do you view yourself as the beggar or the businessman? Think about that for a while. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.